Welcome back to the Media Files podcast. Today I am solo. This is, I think, the 1st of November. Yeah, it is. So we are, just doing a solo episode because I feel like the podcast itself has not been shown any love. I did record a solo episode talking about Scooby-Doo stuff and just kind of that whole series and whatnot. But, I was kind of like, do I really want to post that? Maybe I'll post it as maybe like a lost episode or something. It wasn't really something I really wanted to talk too much about, but at the same time, it was something that was an interesting topic. So today, the interesting topic, I was looking up topics to talk about for today, and one really stuck out to me. And I'm going to pull it up here. It is this right here. So I looked up manga and anime debate topics. And for those who are on YouTube, you can see this. Those who are not, basically, there is a list of the biggest fan debates about anime that still rage to this day. And one of them is Goku versus Superman, or Saitama versus everyone, anime versus cartoon. I can either imagine that's in the scope of animation, Western animation versus, Eastern animation or whatever. I'm not going to, put my own sense on that. But the one that really got me was the Goku versus Superman. And recently I've been watching a lot of YouTube shorts. I don't know the creator's name or what his channel is. He just kind of pops up on my feed every now and then, and people will pay him to answer questions or whatever. If I remember his name, I'll definitely mention it. But I'm pretty sure you've seen him where it's like, oh, what cartoon character was betrayed the most, or which villain is the most villainous or something like that, someone would ask. But for me, I think the biggest ones are the ones where they'll ask Goku or an anime character versus another anime character or a cartoon character from a different series. Now you might be asking me why is that a big deal for you? Why is that worthy of a topic? I'm not here to debate whether Goku is the strongest anime protagonist ever. I'm not here to debate whether he is literally the greatest of all time. And I think a lot of people want to say that because Dragon Ball is their favorite series. Let's be honest. A lot of times, if someone is your favorite character, you are not going to look at the character this topic objectively. You're going to look at it in a lens of, I want my character to win, because ultimately, who would want their favorite character to get beat up? I'm just going to be honest. But my reasoning for kind of talking about this, even more so with Sparking Zero, I don't know why I want to keep saying sparkling, but it's Sparking Zero. And after, playing that for a little bit and, kind of feeling the game out, I do have my gripes about the game. It is far from the best Dragon Ball game ever. Because one of the boys posted in the chat, somebody just their own opinion about the game. And I shared a lot of the thoughts. More primarily, one of my biggest gripes, and I'm pretty sure I said it on one of the episodes, where basically the story mode is just akin to slideshows. And I'm like, in any other Budokai Tenkaichi, these cutscenes were actually animated. Hear me out. Even the what if stories, they were animated. You have the characters, you have the animations. Even when Goku goes Super Saiyan for the first time, I'm like, this is just a slideshow. There's no feeling. There's no emotion behind it. See, here's the point. When I watch the anime, I watch it and I get certain feels when certain things happen. Like when Goku went Super Saiyan for the first time, we were all losing our minds. It was one of the greatest events in anime history. Because it was this character who refused to kill anybody was I'm going to kill you for killing my best friend. It was he was backed into a wall, and that power within him responded to that anger. And then thus came Super Saiyan. And because of that emotion, that made that moment that much more powerful to me. The same with Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 or when Goku went Super Saiyan 3. The least was definitely for me like when they do fusions for the first time. It's kind of like, sure, whatever, it's cool. But the point of the matter is there's a little bit more emotion attached to these transformations. Goku turned Super Saiyan because Krillin was literally killed in front of him. Gohan was like, everyone's going to die because of me, and Android 16 literally gave his life for him. And then Super Saiyan 3 was a result of like training and whatnot. So there wasn't really much of an emotion attached to it, but the spectacle behind the transformation was definitely there. The scream also helped, sell that piece even more. But the point of the matter is that if you're going to do a slideshow, that robs that moment of the emotional ammunition, I should say, or the emotional kind of power that it has. So I'm just playing it like, well, I'm just playing a game. There's no investment for me. And let's not also forget that you can technically buy all the characters in the shop. So there's really no reason to technically play the story mode. Because if I remember correctly, you can get Zenny from just playing the world tournament. So you just spam the world tournament, get all the money you need, unlock all the characters you need, and bam, you're good. You technically don't even have to touch the story mode, which is fine. But I also believe that this is a mixture of two things that didn't need to happen. Because Dragon Ball does work as a fighting game. Fighters was the best Dragon Ball Z fighting game representation. It was made specifically to be a fighting game. Now with Sparking Zero, there is Xenoverse 2, where there is the story. You can customize your own character. And I think that's also kind of where I'm drawing a lot of lines from too. Because Xenoverse 2, all their cutscenes are animated for the majority of everything that happens. It is an original story and all that stuff is animated. I'm just saying. You can choose your own character and customize them. You can give them the best moves you want. You can play online if you want to. You can play with the store if you want to. You can do whatever you want. You can play with your friends. There are some other things you can do that are questionable. All the characters you have to pay for in order to fully unlock. But again, I am not going to sit here. I'm going to say it like this. Xenoverse 2 would be on par with Sparking Zero. Why do I keep calling it that? With Sparking Zero, if those animations for the transformations, the attacks, the beam struggles, all that was transplanted over to Xenoverse 2, netcode was fixed and improved to the maximum, Xenoverse 2 would then be a better game than Zero. Because again, you can create your own characters. You can assign them however you want. Even the original characters you can customize to some degree. So again, but I'm not saying that to say, oh, Zero is a terrible game, but I think there's a lot of aspects of it that are keeping it from being as good as I would want it to be. Like as soon as I saw the story mode, I was disappointed because I'm like, this is the same thing that happened with the Naruto Storm games. They started doing way too much, adding way too many characters. Their focus was on the characters alone and everything else suffered. But I think the latest one, they had too many characters. Each character couldn't get the love and attention that they needed. And the story was definitely not up to par, and the animations. So, you give, you lose. That's the whole point. Apparently, in order to even have anything or, operate on some form or level, in order to reach higher, you got to let go of some things. Primarily dignity or respect in some cases, concord. But I'm not talking about that this episode. This episode, again, circling back just to say, all this. I do not like this debate of this anime character versus this anime character, this anime character versus this cartoon character, and bam. There's two divided sides. And as I said, if you're favorite character is one of those, then you are more than likely to defend that character to the end of your life. And I understand that very well. It's just like how stories are made. With a likable protagonist, you connect with that person in a way to where you don't want to see them lose. And if you do see them lose, you expect them to rise above that loss, learn from it, and become a better person and a better fighter at the end of that. Which is why the whole like Saiyans never lose twice kind of deal kind of embodies that ideology. I can't speak right now. Ideology very well. They never lose to the same person twice. Keep that in mind. But the most important thing I also want to bring up to you guys is, and I want to say this as gently as possible. Are we kids? Like, being honest, because I've had to kind of check myself with this sometimes. Because I will have, kind of disagreements or debates with other people like, no, Goku would so totally fold this guy. And I'm like, but then I think to myself and I'm like, why do I even care that much to defend him in this way? And a lot of that, I would say, probably comes from, again, if I had to name my top anime, it would definitely be Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball definitely holds a place in my heart, but specifically Dragon Ball Z, One Piece. I liked Bleach at one point, but Naruto I liked at one point too, but the original, not Shippuden and definitely not Boruto. And I think I spoke about this in the episode with the Scooby-Doo one that I didn't post, so don't worry about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I did talk at length about having opinions about certain things without knowing the full story. Because in that, I talked about Fairy Tail specifically, because I think Fairy Tail is one of those anime manga, because it's still ongoing. Well, Fairy Tail 100-year quest is going. I think it's still ongoing. I haven't caught up with it yet. I think it's been like a couple of weeks since I've read it. I did kind of take a break from some series. But that one I'm definitely like at least up to date with. There's Dead Rock, which I read to start, but then I was kind of like, this feels like an asset flip because it's literally just Akino, the Black Dragon. That sounds weird. But the Black Dragon, the evildoer from the main series, basically, in a demon school or whatever, which is a cool concept. But it's like you're just reusing assets from another series, because ultimately that's what people are going to draw that conclusion to. And then we have characters that look like other characters. And it's like, OK, this is just an asset flip. But I mean, you have to draw everything yourself. So listen. Do what you do. But amongst the three of us, I'm the only one who has read it and watched it to completion. So when people, especially the boys, are like, Fairy Tail's not that good for this reason, then I'll say like, well, did you watch it all the way? And they're like, no. So then I'm like, well, they explain that later on. It's like, oh, I will only defend things that can be explained. I will not defend anything that cannot be explained and has not been explained. I.e., that is the difference between good writing and bad writing. Like, I will never defend Sword Art Online. There is nothing you can tell me that makes Sword Art Online a good anime or manga. I watched the first season like everybody else, and I was like, dang, this is pretty good. Because the stakes were high. That wasn't until the ending when Kirito and Asuna actually died in the game. But for whatever divine reason, they were still alive. And I'm like, we've watched all these characters get literally stabbed and killed and eaten. And we're like, yeah, they're dead for good. But then Kirito and Asuna is like, nah, we don't want them to die. They're good. And then we went to Fairyland and I was like, oh, God. Like all the stakes were gone. This was no longer a death game. It was more so like, we're just playing games now. There's really nothing to it. And I don't know why Sword Art Online keeps putting out games. Anywho, long story short, Sword Art Online is just this like game junkie. Like it's trying to appeal to gamers, but it fails very horribly at that. It's literally trying to say, oh, if you're a good gamer, you can translate those skills into an actual real life application. Which I think is wrong. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, if you play Call of Duty, you know how to shoot a gun. No, you don't. You don't know how to shoot a gun. Do you know how to maintain a gun? Do you know how to clean a rifle? Do you know how to properly load and unload ammunition? What if your what if your gun jams? What do you do then? Anywho, long story short, that is all just to say that a lot of times people will pull on whatever experiences or whatever has happened in order to justify their stance of my favorite anime character is stronger than yours. So let's kind of I'm going to give an example. Just a quick example. Let's say we put Goku, and a lot of times they like to specify. They're like, Goku from Super would totally fold Naruto from Shippuden. But then it's like, okay, are we talking about like Shippuden, like once he has like the Sage mode and all that stuff? Or are we talking about like starter Shippuden? And they got to be very specific. It's like they will intentionally like pick, I'm not going to say the weakest version of them, but like, they'll just, because I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you ever like even make that as a debate? So I don't know. But one thing I definitely want to just kind of talk about real quick is the example. So Goku versus Naruto. People will go at like, let's say they're like, oh, Goku, he can literally blow up a planet. And then people be like, well, Naruto could do it too if he uses a giant Rasengan. And it's like, well, okay. But fundamentally, they're two different individuals in two different worlds under two different circumstances. And what I mean by that is, why are we comparing two characters who don't even reside in the same universe? And I think a lot of that comes from, I mean, we can say it. A lot of that can come from like when we have comic books like Marvel. We're like, what if this version of Spider-Man fought this version of Spider-Man? There's probably a comic book about that. If this version of Iron Man versus this version of Iron Man, there's probably a book about that. This Hulk versus everybody, there's probably a comic book about that. But we cannot translate that to anime and manga. Because again, here's my point. They live in their own environments. Their worlds have their own rules and laws that they, abide by. And some of those rules are not clearly explained all the time. But the point of the matter is we cannot compare apples to oranges. As in Goku versus Naruto does not make sense, because if you place Naruto in Goku's universe or in his manga or, in his setting, maybe chakra doesn't even work. Or maybe chakra is ki. So what way can we measure how strong they are? Same if we move Goku over to Naruto. Is ki chakra? Would Goku even be able to use ki? Here's the thing, people. Let's stop acting like we are able to quantify how strong someone is just based on what they can do. Because Goku, okay, he's able to destroy a whole planet with a Kamehameha. Okay? How big is the Earth compared to the Earth in Naruto's universe? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Earth in Goku's universe has dinosaurs, demons, talking animals. Like, there's so many different things that are blending into that world that it is not just Earth. And even if you're like, okay, Ben 10 versus Steven Universe, Are they on the same Earth? Did he have the same places? Like in Steven Universe, they don't even go that many places outside of that island, except in the outer space. So you can't say, oh, yeah, he would, fold this guy. And it's like, well, they don't reside in the same plane of existence. So in that, your arguments are invalid. And you have to admit that your argument is based solely on, I don't want my anime character, my favorite anime character, to look weak or to be seen as a punk. So I'm going to defend him and I'm going to give examples. So like your average Dragon Ball Z watcher will be like, well, Goku, he was able to, teleport at the speed of light, in this one instance. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And then it's like, well, Naruto, he's able to use multiple shadow clones and all those shadow clones have his power level. And it's like, listen, believe what you want to believe. But again, unless those two characters reside in the same universe, there's no point. The only characters that you can say for sure are capable of doing something and are capable of beating someone are those within that same universe. You get what I'm saying? It's almost like saying, like, with One Piece. It's like, oh, I'm going to say Luffy can, definitely beat Naruto. You have no proof of that. There is no proof of that. But then if you say, oh, Luffy, he could totally beat, Mr. One from Baroque Works. And you're like, oh, yeah, he can. Like, if we're talking about like Luffy as he is now versus Mr. One, no matter how strong he is, Luffy can fold him because we have that power scale. We have the in-world system to make that tangible example and make it work. On the flip side, Luffy versus Goku. Again, worlds are the same. Or no, worlds are different. Laws are different. Powers are different. Stop trying to make one power system and equate it to another. Hockey is not key. There is no definitive way of saying that. I was literally, before I jumped on here, well, as I was looking up that topic, I saw someone defending that out of the big three, Bleach is the strongest. And it was their opinion, sure. But number one, you don't even listen. I can't defend Bleach anymore. And a lot of that came from the fact Ichigo's kind of a one-trick pony. He uses Getsuga Tensho every single time he swings his sword. And that's pretty much it. Like, people talk about Goku with Kamehameha and Naruto with Rasengan. Well, Ichigo uses Getsuga Tensho a lot. It's like his only move. Like, I remember when he got his powers back and he's like, he was fighting Genjo or whatever. And he's like, oh, he swung his sword and Genjo was like, I was able to withstand your Getsuga Tensho. That means I can beat you. And Ichigo was like, nah, that wasn't it, bro. I just swung my sword. And they were like, huh? And then he actually does it and splits the heavens or whatever. But the point of the matter is that in that universe, Ichigo versus Rukia is a lot more tangible because you have those laws and those rules and the story to back up those claims. However, cross series, cross anime, cross manga, that argument loses steam, it loses relevance, and it doesn't make sense. Especially when it's grown people making these arguments. I could probably go on YouTube right now. Hold on. I'm about to do that right now. I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to look up a random. Let's see. Goku versus. I'm looking for. Okay, Saitama. Okay, that's a good one. Yep. Okay. Yep, Ichigo. You just type in any character versus another character, you're probably going to find a video. So let's look up Goku versus Ichigo. Why Goku versus Ichigo is far closer than you think by Clyde. Okay, sure. This was 4 months ago. Okay. Ichigo versus Goku, all forms with proof. I don't know what proof they have. It's probably nothing. Yep. Okay. Yep. Just a whole bunch. Why Goku versus is that? Which Ichigo was in close. Oh my god, some of these are so stupid. And there's even one where it's like Goku versus Ichigo power levels. You know for a fact that these are not legit. And a lot of times it's more so to get those comments going. As in, you post that with the intention of having people debate that topic. Because, just like I know, that anything in YouTube or even Instagram in those spaces require interaction in order for that person to receive, more notoriety. As in, if you post a video and it's like you get like 1,000 likes versus 1,000 likes and 100 comments, YouTube's going to think, oh, this person is getting more engagement. So we can recommend it with the likelihood of it being watched. So, like how I'm just scrolling. But I didn't put it over there for, specific reason. But long story short, there is this idea that you can, as long as you have quote unquote evidence, because I could even argue, anyone can argue against the evidence. There is no factual evidence. These are fictional stories. We are grown men and women. Stop acting like you are able to quantify and say for sure that Goku versus Ichigo, there's a clear winner. When they don't reside in the same space, they are not from the same series, and don't take the creator's word for it either. Because they're also just saying things because a lot of times they want that notoriety. People, do you not realize people will say anything just for that attention? Look in the day and age that we're in now, where anyone will say anything debatable just for inclining of attention. So in other words, grow up. I say this in the nicest way because I also have to say this to myself. We have to grow up past the point of these are fictional characters residing in their own fictional space, and they have no relation to anybody else except for those within that space. I.e., if you can pit Goku versus Cooler, you can know a winner. Because if you say Dragon Ball Goku versus Cooler, you know who's going to win. There's no ifs, buts, or whats about it. But if it's Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan 3 Goku versus Cooler, it's a clear winner. There's no ifs, buts, or whats about it because what has happened, what is written in the story, and what has been shown through animation. There is never going to be a moment where there is a clear, defined winner. Because again, these are fictional characters in their own fictional space, operating under their own rules, laws, and understanding of how the world works. Because, I can spin that on the head. I'm pretty sure someone, will say this like, oh, Goku versus Ichigo, is really no contest because technically death doesn't really have much of a sting over in, Goku's universe, because literally he could just come back to life. They have Dragon Balls to make wishes. And technically Soul Reapers are, souls. They're dead, technically. So, yeah. You can spin it however you want. But long story short, that is just kind of my view on it. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this, again, this is probably a shorter episode. I just kind of wanted to get something out there to put on the podcast. And this will also go on YouTube as well. So if you're on YouTube listening to this, make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Comment down below what your thoughts are on this debate. You know, just again, the whole idea of characters reside in their own fictional space. They have their own rules, their own laws to abide by, and crossing those rules into another world make no sense because there's no 1 for 1. There's no 2 for 2. Like, how do we know if we didn't throw Goku into Dr. Stone's world, there would be ki to use? You get what I'm saying? Like, that understanding of it may not be there. So it's like, well, he can't use it if it doesn't exist, because they don't use it there. So again, excuse me, comment down below what you think, like, share, subscribe. And if you're on the podcast, make sure to follow us, share with all your friends, family, who, you know, people who like I said, we talk about everything media. Our last video was a movie reaction. And in the following videos, we'll probably do more. We'll have another topic coming up, and we'll try to finish up the Backrooms game as well. We posted 3 videos for that because it was a 3-hour recording. So it did take up a lot of time and resources. So, you know, we kind of split that up for you guys. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, follow, and enjoy your weekend. Peace out.